Welcome to episode 102 of the iPhoneography podcast. This is our final episode in the Picture Perfect series where we try to teach you what we can and what we know about different elements of iPhone photography or photography in general. And we have a special guest with us. Stick around to find out. It's Monday, September 25th, and this is the iPhoneography podcast. This is the final episode of our learning series that we call Picture Perfect. And I think this is the seventh episode of that series. And we have a special guest with us this evening. And I'm so glad that he was able to do this one because he is going to have so much input, I'm sure, on what we have to discuss tonight. The topic is developing your unique style. And who other than to join us on this than all the way from down under, Mike James. How are you, Mike?
Hey guys, I'm very good, very good. I'm really excited about this topic, finding your style. It's something that I know I personally have struggled and, like many, continue to struggle with. But I think once you understand what it is, you can take the pressure off yourself. Yeah.
Well, with the book that you've produced, what is it? Stronger Photography Photo Composition 4-Step System. It's way over there. That's why it's hard to read with these glasses. But it's so well written, and there is so much in it that I thought all this stuff would probably just come second nature to you. But I'm surprised to hear you're actually struggling with it. No, I think it's going to be a great discussion, and of course we have Mr. Dave Podner. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Greg.
So I was just saying to the guys here that I'm on the downside of the tail end of a cold, a nasty head cold I had over the weekend. So I'm so glad Mike's here because he can do some of the talking that I know if I do too much talking tonight, I'm going to pay for it. So I will, chime in when I think I can. I'll introduce each segment of the outline. But I'm going to let these guys, share their knowledge, and that's basically how tonight will go. So hopefully, by the time the next episode comes around, my voice will be back to normal, and I won't have the sniffles or the cough and all that stuff. So anyway, so we shall begin. And
hey, Greg. Okay, one thing that was popping up in the news that I quickly want to mention.
Oh, right.
Was the bend. No, that's okay. That's okay. You're getting over a cold.
Oh, so yeah. See,
it's Bendgate 2.0. Now, if you remember, I'm calling it that. I don't think anyone else is, but we all remember the original Bendgate when I think the iPhone 6 came out and people were having it bent because they were sitting on the phone because of the new design. And now people are taking the pros with the titanium outsides, and they're either dropping them on the ground as part of a drop test to see how well it does, or they're in their hand trying to crunch it in half like a biscuit. They're trying to crunch up and make smaller. And this finally, now admittedly, we're audio, so no one will get this joke except for you two on the thing. But finally, after 30 years, I get to use my 2 diplomas in engineering to talk about something.
Wow, far more qualified than us.
Yeah, I'll say.
Finally, first of all, titanium, and I know this because the first one's in aerospace engineering, and that's titanium's used in a couple different places. Aerospace and medical are the 2 places it's mostly used. One, it's not very reactive, but B, it's light. Not that it's stronger overall, but for the same thickness or same size, it's much lighter, which if you have like Mike was talking about, you hear it as someone's got a titanium rod in their leg or their arm or something when something gets broke. Lightness is a big deal. If you can put something that's 20%, 30% lighter in your arm, so you're not trying to lift up a heavy piece of metal in your arm or your leg, makes a big difference. When you're putting something like as a plane, like the SR-71 Blackbird, or putting something in space, lightness is money. It's $10,000 US per pound to launch something into orbit now. And that's cheaper and it's been in a while. So lightness is money. So, but titanium, again, not necessarily stronger per weight. So yes, it's significantly lighter. You hear people who have hands-on with it saying, especially since it's on the outside, it feels so much lighter. And it's so much easier to deal with than the 14 Pro or the 13 Pro.
Yeah. And so you never did say, but you're talking about the 15 Pro and Pro Max, right?
Right. Yeah. But titanium does have a couple of one major negative compared to stainless. It's not as malleable. It's I'm trying to get the right term here. It's not as flexible. So it's a technical term. Its modulus of elasticity is less. So where stainless will bend and come back, that's called elastic deformation for technical terms. So if you can bend something, it goes back to normal. That's elastic. Plastic is you bend it and it just kind of stay bent.
Right.
Titanium may be stronger per the same weight, per the same size, but it will not bend back. It's not as bouncy or as elastic as stainless steel. So when it hits the ground, it won't. Where stainless does have that a little bit more. Well, it's actually like twice as much, but that little bit of stainless will give you a little bit more cushion, a little bit more absorption of the shock instead of going right to the glass. Titanium doesn't. Titanium will just kind of transfer all that force right to the glass and the glass shatters.
Yeah, well,
which is what they're seeing. Yeah,
that was my concern when I heard about this the titanium frame and so much emphasis on it. My initial response was, well, every issue that I've heard with people taking phones back in to get repaired has been the screen.
It's the glass,
the same ceramic glass that's in the previous. So yeah.
And the other problem is where you could take a piece of stainless and put a decent amount of force on it and it'll bend, but it'll come back because it's got that a little bit of elasticity to it. Titanium doesn't. Titanium's stiff. So you put enough pressure on it, it'll bend, but if it bends, it's probably going to stay bent, where stainless will bounce back a little bit more. So that's why you're seeing these bend tests where they didn't make the frame stronger. They kept the strength the same, but used a lot less material, making it lighter. So since they were able to do that, it still is strong. So people are noticing, I can push it this far before it breaks. But before the break point,
that to the brand new phone. My gosh.
I know, right?
Yeah, I know.
If you don't want it, give it to us.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is something that ticks me off, to be honest. I mean, if you're someone doing like I was telling Greg, there's a research institute in the U.S. called the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. So they, on their own, buy cars off the lot and crash them. In terms of to see what's safe, and then they give them grades, and it's this high, but it's well done, high quality studies. It isn't, we bought a car off the lot and we're going to put it on cruise control and hit it into a wall and see what happens. That's equivalent to what they're doing here with these phones. They're like, we're holding it at the same height and we're going to drop it on concrete. Let's see what breaks first. And then even that's from someone who actually did not drop experiments, but did know what it's like to set up experiments for repeatability, because that's what you want to do. You want to repeat it. I know they're doing it for the views, and we're talking about it, and other people are talking about it, and they're making a big deal out of it and everything else. But honestly, like Ruth has an iPhone 13. I have a 13 Pro Max. So even though my phone is bigger than hers, it's significantly heavier because I'm stainless, she's aluminum.
Yeah.
It's going to be lighter. It's going to be in between 75. It's going to be like, if you had a 14 and a 14 Pro, of the same size, you were like, the Pro's so much heavier because of the stainless. It's not going to be, it's going to feel a little bit lighter. That's what Apple was going for. And the average person isn't going to notice.
Yeah, or personally, the reason why I've since the 13 have gone the max, the large, is I actually like the weight. I'm not going to lose it because I know where it is. I know when I'm carrying it.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I know it's a marketing term to make it lighter, but that doesn't appeal to everybody. Yeah.
Well, anybody I've seen that's doing a review of them, they say they can notice a significant difference in the weight, and I'm sure that's true. In fact, a friend of mine in town here, a guy I work with, he got his 15 Pro Max. He had a 12 Pro Max, and he said he can really notice how much lighter it is. And there was something I heard on, I think it was Mac Break Weekly, where they were talking about a guy who
they don't break Macs, do they?
No.
They don't do drop tests on those.
No. No, they just take a break during the day to talk about them. But they said there was a guy, I forget what the term was that this guy used, but it's the feeling, it all has to do with the inertia of the movement in your hand and that, and that's what makes it feels lighter too.
Yeah.
But
it's just more of a rotational inertia. So where they took the weight, they didn't take the weight uniformly from the phone. They took it from the outside.
Yeah.
Well, there is an aluminum part of the body inside too that it helps reduce the weight. It's about 20 grams lighter, I think.
Yeah.
So, and there's going to be some potential buyers out there who are looking at and comparing the Pro and the Pro Max and looking at the USB-C and going, I really need that Max because I want that faster USB, but I'm concerned that if I go to a Max for the first time, I'm going to be carrying this heavier phone. So I guess for some of those people, they'll be going, oh, you know what? It's bigger, but it's not necessarily going to be a lot heavier because they've been out there saying how much lighter this new frame is.
Yeah.
I think the reason Dave wanted to bring this up though really is as basically as a kind of like a PSA to people who are buying these phones, like just to help spread a bit of awareness that they may be lighter, but it's not necessarily super strong. The drop test proved that, the one I saw anyway, this guy flew all the way to Sydney, Australia to do this drop test because he wanted to be there to get them first before anybody else could and record this drop test. And he did the 15 Pro Max and the 14 Pro Max. And when he dropped them, he did all these different levels of height, waist high, chest high, head high. And then he even climbed these stairs and dropped them down on this brick sidewalk or whatever. And the 14 Pro Max took a lot longer to break into pieces, as far as the glass goes, than the 15 Pro Max did. And he was really, stressing the fact that the 15 Pro Max wasn't holding out as well as the 14 Pro Max. But most people are going to have, and of course, there's no case on these. Most people are going to have a case on them. Most people aren't going to drop the darn things like that all the time, unless you're setting it up in a window above the garage door, trying to take pictures, like somebody I know.
Yeah. There's a reason why when I buy a case, I buy one that is not just that has shock protection on it, because I do drop stuff on concrete.
I've dropped my 14 Pro Max before too, but it's always had a case on it. So it's actually in, I would say, 99.9% mint condition, because I always keep a case on it. But anyway, so that's enough about the destroying of iPhones. Now we're going to try to figure out how to help people use them better. So this is the final segment of our Picture Perfect series. And like I said earlier, it's developing your unique style. So the outline description is basically developing a unique style in iPhone photography is an ongoing process that involves exploration, experimentation, and self-expression. Here are some tips to help you discover and develop your own signature style. So the first one is study and draw inspiration. Look for inspiration in various sources, including photography books, online platforms, exhibitions, the work of photographers you admire. Analyze their composition, use of light, color palettes, and subject choices. This will help you understand different styles and identify elements that resonate with you. And I could say I've done some of this stuff. I mean, I don't think my style is like anybody else's really, but I have gone through Instagram or Glass or Flickr or any of these other online communities, and I've I've looked at their style, and I thought sometimes I'll look at a picture and I think I'd like to take a picture just like that, but not to copy, but just to explore, just to kind of see what it takes to get a look like that type of thing. But Mike, what have you what do you draw from this part of your studying and drawing inspiration from others?
Yeah, I think I this is one of the practical activities in my book, and one of the reasons why I wrote the book is that I want you need to be able to look at a photo and go, "That's an amazing photo," but then be able to break it down and articulate what it is about that photo why you aspire to take a photo like that. And it could be, like you say, composition, lighting. There could be so many different elements in there. And I think it's really important to educate yourself on the kind of looking at it more abstractive. Abstractive, is that a word? Abstractively.
We'll make it one.
Let's make it up. Well, speaking of making up terms, photo hacking. I treat it like photo hacking. So when you hack something, it sounds nefarious and something negative, but photo hacking is basically looking at the photo, like you say, and I want to take a photo like that. You don't necessarily need to stand in the same spot, but just look at the photo and think, okay, it's compositionally, they've done this. And in the book, I've got over 100 different techniques and tips in there. So there's lots there to just scroll through and go, okay, tick, I can identify that. Oh, they've done this, tick. There's so many there you can go through and break it down compositionally. And then think about looking at this photo, where does my eye go first of all? And then you think, okay, well, that might be part of their style, is that they're consistently, all their photos. The reason why I like this photographer and I'm inspired by this photographer is they have me looking and reading the photo this similar way, or they might have me feeling and reacting a similar way, and it might resonate with my own preferences and styles. Yeah.
That's a lot of good points there. Dave, have you got any have you spent any time looking through other people's pictures for inspiration or anything?
Yeah, I have, and a lot of it where I see things where either the overall look is something I like, or a particular shot that goes, oh, I didn't think about looking at a photo that way. Or there is one person, I want to make sure I give her credit. She's a local photographer in Pittsburgh. And here we go. She's on Instagram as Crazy City Lady. Her name's Nikki Weiser. And one thing that she's real big on are reflections and different shots, especially, and also different shots with the bridges around town. So those are just shots that I didn't think about even making before. And when I had a chance, when I'm, walking around looking at different angles, because of me looking at her photos, thinking, I like the way that looks. Again, you don't even have to at first know why you like something, because there's lots of reasons we're drawn to certain things or we like certain things, and it's all individual. That's why when I hate people say, oh, that's not a good photo or that's not good here, it's all up to the individual. It's one thing to say, well, there's a difference between positive feedback and just denigrating someone else's work. But you like what you like, and that changes over time too. That's why in the beginning it says about an ongoing process. If you look at photos I took 5 years ago, and the editing I did, not only am I using different tools now than I did then, I have a different style and a different way I do it because it evolves over time. And part of it is, looking at different hashtags. If I'm interested in a landscape, I may go to Instagram or like a Vero or somewhere else and look at and do a search by hashtag and see what other people have tried. And some things I'm like, not my thing. I don't see either that's not a thing that interests me, or I don't have the ability, or maybe they're using different software I don't really want to spend time and effort to learn, or different equipment I don't necessarily want to invest in. But you get a feeling for that, and then you can jump up and make it your own.
Or even location can be make a difference there. Like, I would love to take pictures of the giant redwoods on the west coast of the U.S., of the north, like the Pacific Northwest, but I can't because I'm not there. Will I ever get there? I don't know. I have my doubts. So when I see somebody's image of those great big trees, I will go to a place that's not far from here that has big pine trees, and I will try to take a picture that kind of reminds me of those types of scenes, forest scenes and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I study and draw inspiration. Is I see these pictures, and I, even though I know I can't get a shot like it, I'll try to get something sort of like it.
Yeah, I think. Also, I think when we're drawing inspiration, it's also art as well. Like, going back to art and going, okay, is it minimalism, surrealism, a lot of these things, abstract, that you find in art that you can bring across into photography. And I think abstract is one that I've struggled with, but it's only been recently that I've been doing a course on abstract photography that I really now understand that style. It's because I never understood it. I'd look at it and go, yeah, I don't get it. There's no story.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I've spent so long researching composition and understanding that composition is all about visual flow and matching it to your photographic intention. Whereas with abstract and a lot of these arts, like impressionism and with photography, there's romanticism, just creating that soft focus and all that sort of thing. I would look at it, but now I'm looking at it more that, okay, well, what the intention of the photographer is not to communicate something to me. It's the intention of this photographer is to showcase, hey, this doesn't look like anything that you can't identify, but have a look at these cool lines, tones, textures, colors, shape, form, all these elements that are in the photo. And so, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, about exploring different genres, but I thought that just tied in with what you're saying there. Yeah. Yep.
But, I think the biggest thing about photography and art in general is that it's subjective, right? It's what you like is subjective. You Dave might like something that I don't really think so highly of, or Mike, you might like something that I might find boring or whatever, but those are just stupid examples, but that's basically what it's like in the world of art. And it goes well beyond photography. I mean, it could be sculptures, it could be anything. It's always subjective, and I think when having a discussion with others about art, everybody has to remember that it's subjective, and not everybody's going to agree to the same things. So, there's three key words in this whole segment, and that is study and then draw inspiration. So, It never hurts to look through other people's images. And I mean, I look through Instagram probably every day at some point, or Glass or Vero or one of these, even on Facebook in the groups that we're in. But I'm always, looking at what they've done and thinking, oh, wow, that's really cool. I really like that. Or, I might have a little issue with this one or that one. But but a lot of times I do draw inspiration from them. And that's what makes this stuff so much fun, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I picked up a tip recently. You mentioned study and grow. That we have a National Gallery Victoria (NGV) in Melbourne, and they have different exhibitions all the time. And they have a bookshop there. And inside the bookshop, they've got all these books on different art periods that you can go in there. And every time I go there, I buy a new book. I've just started doing this, and then that, then you can go into one of these topics and really learn that particular topic in depth. So I think it's important. I mean, I know I'm a little bit biased because I produce courses, but courses and books are not, you learn the way you want to learn and need to learn. I mean, going to YouTube and is great. Facebook groups, Instagram, it's really good to learn things, but you're just picking up little bits each time. But a structured learning, like a book like that you can pick up at a gallery, something like that where you can actually, it's structured learning. I'm a big advocate. Being an instructional designer, I've got a diploma too, Dave. Yours off. Should show mine off. That's why when people learn off YouTube, it's like, no, it's passive. You're just taking in the information that you already know, and you're just learning so slowly. And I think part of finding your own style is education and experimentation, which we'll cover in a bit more depth. Yep.
Yeah. So the next part is just that, experiment with different genres. And so it says explore different genres of photography, such as landscapes, portraits, street photography, abstracts, or still life. Try out various genres. Trying out various genres allows you to find what interests you the most and where your creative strengths lie. This is something that I've just in recent years tried playing around with a little bit, because I was always just pretty much straight landscapes. And but there's times when I'll see somebody's street photography on Instagram, say, and I'm thinking, wow, that's kind of cool. In the town where I live, I don't think it's as accepted as the bigger cities. People tend to get a little squirrely, I think, when people start taking pictures of people on the street. And there's a real craft to approaching people on the street to see if you can take their picture. And it's just not my forte, I guess you could say. That's not to say I won't try it. I want to try it at some point, but I think I would be more inclined to try it, one of these shooting from the hip type of things where you can just be lucky to get the shot type of thing.
Well, the three of us are introverts, aren't we?
Yeah, I would say so.
I can't imagine. I saw an Instagram account where this person was taking photos and then printing it on the spot, and then going up to them and giving them the little tiny print of the photo, and you get the reaction with the body worn camera and all that. It's like, oh, that's so cool. I'd love to do. Yeah, no, I can't do that.
Yeah,
it's not me.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, Dave, have you really played around with different genres? Like, you're a little bit of a mixed bag, I think, when it comes to your subject matter, because you do people, with your racing and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I've seen so many different things from you.
Yeah, I don't really have a particular genre that I focus on. It's more of what I see that interests me at the time and what's available. So, like you said, there are times like yesterday I had a race, so I was around places that I could take. Also on Saturday for when I had to pick up the packet, I took a few photos downtown, which is going to have a completely different vibe and a different availability than where I live in the suburbs or where I work, which is another suburb but a little further out, or if I go to a wooded area. So for me, it's more. I think I look around, see what's available to me, and see if something interests me that will make a photo and either tell a story, or like a sunset that just kind of explodes with color, or interaction between shadow and light, or framing a certain subject. So yeah, I really have kind of an eclectic grouping of photos that I put out there.
Yeah, it's I've seen, like, as far as genres go from you, I've seen like architecture, I've seen automotive, or vehicles or whatever. Blue Caddy.
Yep.
I've seen people. I've seen events. You have such a wide range of things that and like you say, it's because it's what's available to you at the time. I'm going to kind of point back at your book, Mike, about composition. Do you think that can kind of determine what genre you would shoot based on composition?
No, not necessarily. I think composition, you can find composition in any genre. And I think that's why I wrote the book, is that I don't I'm similar. I don't specialize in something with mobile photography. You have Shane Mostyn, who specializes in astrophotography on the smartphone. And this was something that held me back for a long time. It's like, I need to niche down. If I'm going to embark on this journey on being a photography educator, I need to find my people. I need to specialize in something. But I'm the same as Dave. It's like I can't. I started off similar to you, Greg, with landscape photography, and that was when it was a real concerted effort to get out there and learn photography for the first time. When I say that, more than 25 years I've been working in photography, but it's been a job, and it's been very technical and no room for creativity. It was just turn up here, take photos, and then it's only been the last 7 years or so that I actually discovered photography using the smartphone and fell in love with photography. So when I did that, it was like, okay, I really like landscapes, went out there, did landscapes, and then, can't always get to the landscapes, pressures of life, world for me, I can't get out there at sunset and sunrise. So then I started looking for other alternatives, going for walks. I love taking photos of flowers and insects, and now that's probably the most consistent thing. But yeah, to bring it back to the question with the book, the reason why I wrote the book is that, I hadn't found a niche, that a subject matter expert on a particular niche, like your macro. I didn't really find anything like that, but I wanted to add some value and talk about a struggle that I had. And for me, turning up to those landscapes or going for the walk and taking photos of flowers with insects, it's like, okay, here's the photo I want to capture, but how do I capture it? And I think that's where the studying composition helps you and gives you the confidence to be able to walk into any situation, any location, and create an interesting photo, an engaging, impactful photo. And so the 4 steps basically are: where do you position yourself and the camera? So height-wise, angle-wise, tilt the phone, preparing. So do I put a lens attachment on it? Which lens do I select in the native camera? Then it's positioning the visual element. So if there's an insect, if there's a bee on the flower, where do you position the bee in the frame? Where do you position the contextual elements? So I want the bee off center, but then if I do it off center on the left, how does that impact the rest of the elements in the frame? If I position the main visual anchor on the right side off center, where do all the other elements position when I change that location? How do they all interact with each other? And then the 4th step is editing. So cropping, local editing, so that you can get in there and really change that visual flow. So that's what I'm talking about. Those 4 steps, you can apply that to any genre, can't you? Any topic, any subject, any location, weather, time of day. It doesn't matter. If you understand those principles, they're there to guide you. They're not there to restrain you and go, okay, I have to do rule of thirds.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do rule of thirds, you go, I'm going to break that rule. I'm going to put it smack bang in the center. It's like, yeah, you've just centered the photo. That's another principle.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna crop this really weird and really strange. It's like, yeah, that's another principle called awkward crop. You've incorporated visual tension. That's fantastic. Now go learn about visual tension and how you can actually further emphasize visual tension in your photographic intention was to have visual tension in this frame and in this photo. Then how do you then go and edit it to really enhance that and make it a stronger image? So yeah, it doesn't matter what genre. That's basically the main message there.
Yeah, well, that's a really strong point. speaking of, well, actually, we're going to get to that in a minute, playing with composition. But first, we're going to touch on find your preferred subjects. Discover the subjects that fascinate and inspire you. It could be nature, urban scenes, people, architecture, or everyday objects. Focusing on subjects that ignite your passion will help you develop a unique perspective and connection to your photography. That kind of blends in with what we just talked about with the different genres. Like I said about you, Dave, you could, depending on where you are, just depends on the genre you're going to shoot. Like whether you're in nature or an urban scene, like say when you're on a run, people on a run, architecture on a run because you run downtown sometimes, downtown Pittsburgh.
Do you ever walk?
Not if I'm trying to get metals out of it.
So, I mean, there's really not a lot to say in this regard, like to this point about finding your preferred subjects. But, on that point, though, like you said, Matt, thinking about Matt Hoffman for some reason, Mike, about with me, it's macro, shooting macro does excite me. It really ignites my creativity. I could go in my backyard when there's things in bloom, and I could spend an hour shooting, 3 or 4 flowers for some reason. I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy, but it's just, I get lost in it, right? I get lost in that creativity. And, I
totally resonate with that. Because I mentioned with the landscape photography, I can't get to the location. I can't get down to the beach. So then I feel guilty that I'm not out there taking photos. I get withdrawal symptoms. But I can just go out into the backyard, and if I look at my camera roll, the subject that I have so many photos of is bees. Exactly like you're saying. I could just go out in the backyard. Middle of the day is the best time of the day to capture them because they're most active. But to go back to finding your preferred subjects, I think the situation that you find yourself in, whether you go for runs all the time, that is how you find your subject.
Right.
Being limited by being able to go somewhere and having to find opportunities where you live, that helps you find subjects. And we were talking about before about researching as well. So with the bees, now that I've found and I've recognized that, hey, I love taking photos of bees. Just being out there and immersed within the bees and that escapism, time slows down. Just fascinated by these little creatures, you're then encouraged to go and I've gone and done research on bee behavior, and not only through my observations of watching them, but now I've learned, okay, this is the type of bee, this is what they're doing. Having that knowledge about the subject that you've identified with the bees, now I can anticipate what their movement is going to be, so I can actually preposition and subtly and gently manipulate this situation so the bee will, I can anticipate their behavior, but I can also control their behavior without interrupting them, if you like. And because we all know gesture, interaction, capturing that moment, that's what makes an interesting photo, not just a bee on a flower,
Yeah.
You don't want to take a photo of the back end of a bee, head first into a flower. Like you want to get that.
Done that.
Yeah, of course. We want to get that eye contact with the bee, and understanding the subject. Okay, when they go head first in, they're going to come out again, but because it's come from this direction, it's not going to backtrack and go back to the same flower again. It's going to go to another one. So when it comes out, it's going to go in a different direction. So by watching it, you go, okay, I'm going to anticipate it's going to come out this way. And it rarely happens the way you want, but that's the fun of it. That's the thrill of it. It's like, oh, I got the shot. What are the odds that I would get that shot of it coming out mid-flight, frozen wings? I'm sure they're not called wings. See, I could research bees a lot more.
I would imagine they're wings, but
I think they're wings. Yeah,
well, there's a technical term.
Yeah.
But I think once you find your subject and you research it, you'll enjoy, and that's the thing with photography. It gives us so much joy, getting out there and participating in this craft, but also the results of capturing it. And so doing that research, understanding it. I just think you can get so much more out of photography. If you're into architecture, understand why some buildings look better than others. There might be something like, okay, that's an engineering accomplishment, what they've achieved there. So in the photo, emphasize, hey, look at this angle that they've managed to achieve, or look at this amazing contrasting materials that they've used here, and the reflections in glass. And sorry, I could talk about this for hours.
Well,
no,
Dave,
well, let me bound off what Mike said. If you're going to travel somewhere, check out and do a little thing ahead of time, because, well, first of all, it's always good to know what are the normal shots that are taken if you want to try something different. But there are certain buildings which are, this building is, like I said, for architecture, this building was built at this time. It looks like this. And you may be able to get some interesting angles and features, but you have to know where to look for it. And there's even times that you're like, I've seen that person take that photo and I want to recreate that photo, or I want to see if I can recreate that photo. So I need to know, and you can generally tell where they were at, and you can try. You're like, okay, they didn't have an iPhone; they had an expensive whatever. How can I replicate either the feeling or get close to it, or put my own spin on it with my iPhone? There's one building downtown Pittsburgh. It's the United Steelworkers building, and it's the outside of the building is it looks like a lattice, but it's like diamond pattern. So if you're looking down up, you see all these crisscrossing diamond shapes coming up, but you need to get there and look straight up and get the angle and get the feeling for the sun and how the different buildings react to it. But if you're going to like a big city like Toronto, there's 4 or 5 shots that everyone takes per se. First of all, go for it. No one's saying, everyone does that shot. So why? Well, because you're doing the shot and not them. But you may look at the shots and say, oh, that building right there, that kind of gets to me. I don't know what, but it calls to me. I want to take a photo there. So here's where I'm staying and this is where I need to go. And so you can plan ahead and then, figure out like you said, and this is something we're also going to talk about experimenting with lighting, trying to get your own style, looking at the sun and reflections off a thing and, saying, boy, that's there and that's there. So I want to get this angle because the light will hit this way and this will hit this way, And again, doing the research of seeing what other people have done so they know what's going on.
Yeah, it's all part of, the study and whatnot, which is our initial point in the beginning, the study and drawing inspiration. You can always study. Probably with all of these points, there's probably an element of studying involved, learning about them before you even go out and shoot type of thing. So the next one is...
Before we move on, Greg, another thing people can use to learn a bit more about the location and that sort of thing is ChatGPT. I mean, I presented to a local camera club in Melbourne, and I introduced them to this because ChatGPT, you can go in there and you can get smartphone photography tips, and we use them now for our outlines for the podcast. Really, really super helpful. It's not necessarily new things that we're coming up with the framework, but it's reminding us, hey, have you thought about this? It's prompts. They're great prompts, and you can actually. And I've typed this in where I've said, okay. I'm an amateur photographer, new to, and the location was Essendon, which is a suburb of Melbourne. I would like to take some location-specific photographs. Do you have some ideas? And bang, the camera club were blown away because they're locals, and it's come up with a dozen different ideas, like the Essendon Fields airport. If you go to this location, you can capture the windsocks. At this time of day, the windsocks will do this. It was just amazing, the detail that you could find there.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's a real eye opener. It's very handy for that sort of thing. So and that ChatGPT, it's all about the wording, the prompts. So the prompt is area specific photography ideas, and I found that works really well. Yep.
That's cool. That's some good information right there. So the next one is right in your wheelhouse, Mike. It's play with composition. Composition plays a vital role in defining your style. Experiment with different framing techniques, perspectives, leading lines, rules of thirds, symmetry, or unconventional angles. Explore ways to create visual balance and draw the viewer's attention to your subject. And some of this stuff you've actually covered already in a way. But I mean, when I said to you earlier about composition and developing your style, it's composition can certainly develop your style if you use the same type of composition frequently or all the time. But I certainly wouldn't limit it to, one type of composition all the time. That would be a fair statement, right?
Yeah, well, with the book, I have this process called composition stacking. So it's 100 different compositional techniques and tools. Sounds overwhelming. I get that. It's a lot, because we go out there and go rule of thirds, leading lines, and then you might pick up one thing like a Fibonacci spiral. It's okay, I'm going to research Fibonacci spiral, and then you go out and you just concentrate on that one technique. Whereas in the book, what I've done is each of those tools I've combine them into those 4 steps. So they're like 4 buckets, if you like. So, and it's in a chronological order. So the first one, where do I position the camera and the framing? Where do I position myself in the camera? And that kind of, there's lots of different techniques in there. Lower angle, shoot from a lower angle. So you shoot from a lower angle, shoot from side on. So you change the perspective, closer, further away. There's 3 different techniques in just the one shot there. And then you go over to, okay, where am I going to position the main visual anchor? And there might be 3 different ideas or concepts that you incorporate. So if you take 2 ideas out of each of those 4 steps, all of a sudden you've incorporated 8 different compositional techniques in there. So that's how you get that real powerful photo, is that you've incorporated a few of them. But to bring this back to style, style is something that you mentioned. You're spot on with consistency. So you consistently go out and you shoot the same way. But we're going to talk about the pros and cons of that a little bit later. But I would encourage people to go out and with our smartphones, it's fantastic. I mean, now with the iPhone 15, you've got how many? Is it 7 different focal lengths that's programmed into it? So I would encourage people to go out and just choose one. Okay, and just go out with one and just limit yourself with one, and then get familiar with, okay, if I shoot at something at this distance, the proportions and the perspective is going to be this. But if this subject is at instead of 10 meters, it's 30 meters away, how is that going to change the composition? How small is that object going to become the further away it is using this particular focal length in the smartphone? Personally, I love the idea of this, the 5 times optical, and the reason why I love this new option, and gosh, long overdue, isn't it?
Oh yeah, way overdue.
Is the compositional technique of background compression. So basically, if you shoot something from standing further back, then the background in that photo is going to appear bigger. So many times we see an amazing sunset, you pick up the phone and you go, wow, that sun looks tiny. And everything is out of proportion, and you're just dissatisfied with the photo. Whereas having that extra zoom, if you've got a tree that's beautifully silhouetted with the background in the distance, if you use a zoom, speaking of traditional camera, telephoto lens, big zoom lens, it will actually make the background closer to the tree. So developing your style is consistency. So if you go and choose, okay, I love this particular focal length, and an experiment, well, not an experiment, but a challenge that a lot of photographers place on themselves is, I'm just going to put on the 50mm lens for a week and go out and take photos with just that lens. And it's a great way to learn how to use that lens, restrict yourself so that you can actually make do with that lens. So compositionally, doing that is one tip. Another is just going out there and just placing the main subject off center. every photo you take, the main subject is off center. Doesn't matter where it is, whether it's right on the edge and it's facing out of the frame so that it has visual tension, or it's right on the edge and it's facing towards the middle of the frame, and so you have an implied line of sight, or you have a real line of leading line or something like that bringing you back in, or just the space. And when you do this, you then learn things like asymmetrical balance. And so, yeah, anyway, I'm rambling. Again, please tell me to just shut up.
It's all very valuable, in my opinion. Dave,
when an expert's talking about something, you let them talk about something.
Yes, exactly. Do you have a favorite focal length on your phone, Dave, that you use more than any of them?
Not really. It's really up more about, for me, where I'm standing, where the subject is, and the framing of it.
Yeah, so it's kind of in line with what you said before about whatever's presented to you then, right?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I would say I have a favorite crop, and that's 16:9.
Yes, I was thinking that when we hit this subject.
I have a preferred crop, but not really preferred focal length. Well, it kind of though, but if I'm shooting 16:9, that affects the zoom level focal length that I'm selecting, though.
Yes,
because I have to make it where it fits in the subject, versus a 4:3 or a square cutoff. And I think I like 16:9 because the phone's basically 16:9.
Yeah, exactly. The screen is 16:9 or darn close to it. So and with the Apple,
that changes everything, doesn't it? If your style is to go out and just take square crops, if you incorporate that really simple rule of thirds, so you've got the two diagonal lines, two horizontal lines. If you're taking a 16:9, those lines are further spaced away. Whereas if you've got a square crop, then you try and place a subject on one of those four intersecting lines, those four intersecting spots where the lines cross over. With that location is actually going to be a lot closer to the center of the frame than what a 16:9, where those four intersecting dots are further spaced apart. So knowing that, hey, this is my style, I like taking square photos. If you're going to incorporate rule of thirds, you need the main subject to be further away from the center so that you can still achieve that same balance and space that we achieve using rule of thirds. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And you're going to have to keep in mind what is outside of that square area. When you get 16:9, you're wider on the sides or up and down if you're doing vertical. But so you have to consider, does all that stuff fit the vision of the image, or does it not, type of thing. So that's something to consider too.
Yeah.
So the next one is experiment with lighting. Lighting sets the mood and tone of your photographs. Explore different lighting conditions, including natural light, golden hour, blue hour, low light, or dramatic shadows. Develop an understanding of how light affects your subjects and experiment with various techniques to capture unique lighting situations. Something I've learned over the last few years is how much light really matters in a photo. In fact, I look for it consciously look for better lighting now than I used to. I used to think, because I was more landscape than anything, that an overcast day with its perfectly diffused, even lighting was, the chef's kiss. That was the best lighting that you could use in a landscape photo. But boy, oh boy, I'm finding I was so wrong. I mean, in some cases, it works, but it's so much better to have dramatic lighting. And I credit that to watching people on YouTube like Gavin Hardcastle, Adam Gibbs, Michael Shane Bloom, some of these guys that are shooting with their mirrorless or DSLR cameras. And one of the things they always emphasize is the light. And I've really started paying a lot more attention to that in the recent years. So the lighting, I think it's everything.
Yeah, I find with street photography lighting is quite an impact, because if you find, because street photography, that's my kind of genre when it's the middle of the day. That's when I love to do street photography, because you've got those harsh shadows, you've got pockets of light, pools of light in between buildings. You've got the light coming through, so you got the dramatic shadows. I love shadows. Like people call themselves light chasers. I'm a shadow chaser. I just think it adds so much drama. And then my when it comes to that sort of genre, my style with that genre is that I'll crush the blacks and I'll remove all the details and I'll clip the blacks, because that's what I like with street photography. So within each genre, you can have your own style. Yeah. But I was the same. Landscape photography, it's like, okay, well, the lighting and the time of day, this is part of the story. And when I'm judging photo competitions and I'm providing some feedback, you say something positive, you offer some feedback or just a suggestion, an interpretation, and then you provide them with something positive again. Quite often, there's two things that come up all the time, and one is actually three. Let's go with three. Three consistent bits of feedback. One is crop the photo, recompose the photo just by simply cropping it. Edit the photo so that you have a bit more visual flow, like area specific. Like, it's amazing how many photo competitions where people don't take the time to just edit and enhance it a little bit. I hate it when people say, hashtag no edits. It's like, oh, come on, you've missed half of photography. And the other is lighting. Like, this scene would have been amazing if you were just here at a different time of day, and just to get that different lighting. Yeah. Or just wait, like you say, just wait for that cloud to come over and have more diffused lighting. So the lighting can have a big impact on the how impactful that photo is.
Yeah. Well, nice dark shadows, like when you say you crush the blacks, it really adds an element of mystery to the image too. There's a wonderful Irish lad, Brendan O'Shea, who is an amazing street photographer, and he does it all with his iPhone. And I've seen a lot of his images where, there'd be somebody walking along and he just catches them as they walk through the light, and there's shadows on each side of them or something like that, like he's just brilliant at what he does. And I've always thought I'd love to do that with street photography, but like I say, in the town I live in, I don't know that there's anywhere architecturally that will offer that situation up.
I've just got this visual in my head, Greg. I've just got this visual of you finding this one location where the sun comes through between these buildings, and you're sitting there in a deck chair waiting for someone to walk in front of you.
I'll just go, there they are. Pretend I'm talking on the phone. For those who can't see what I just did, but I'll pretend I'm talking on the phone, and all of a sudden, I see somebody coming. Oh, then I'll just hold it up, and I'll just if they stop and say, oh, go ahead, take the picture. I'll say, oh, no, you go ahead, and then as they walk through, click.
Oh my gosh, you are so polite. You would do that, and then you missed that amazing shot.
It's the Canadian in me. So, with lighting, Dave, I think I've seen some of your really cool images with lighting, especially with your solar lights outside your front door. With the shadows they cast, it almost looks like a star filter. Which is really cool.
Yeah, and you have to be careful, especially with the newer iPhones and night mode, because it will all of a sudden it can make it a little too bright sometimes. You really sometimes want a little harsher shadow, and it will make it like, oh, look, midday look. Even though Apple's pretty good with keeping it as realistic as possible, sometimes you still want to have it closer to what your eye sees.
Yeah.
So, like I said, a lot of that's with, taking photos, experimenting, and then using an editor. And not necessarily the built-in editor, but something like a Lightroom Mobile or Photomator, where you can get a little bit more exact with the adjustments.
Yeah, more true to what you saw.
Yeah. Or even like it's like Mike said about making it a little bit harsher than what it was, but to get those extra dark. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or also sometimes when I'll do I'll go on my back hill and take sunset photos, because from the top of my hill it's over. You don't see the house, my house, or the houses across the street. You just see the hills in the distance and the trees.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll take a photo there, and then I'll really make it more of a silhouette look, more than it actually was, to really make it look so you get that focus on the sky and the cut out the trees, not necessarily you see the trees in the foregrounds.
Yeah, that's I think light has so much to do with and it's okay. Let's bring this back around to finding your style. Some people will only shoot at sunset or sunrise. Some people will only shoot at midday. So there's definitely a lot to do with finding your style, with whatever light you prefer.
Yeah.
So next is develop a color palette. Colors can greatly influence the mood and atmosphere of your photos. Pay attention to the colors present in your surroundings and how they interact with your subjects. Experiment with vibrant and bold colors or muted and desaturated tones. Consistency in color treatment can help create a cohesive and recognizable style. So there again, sunsets or sunrises, there's definitely a color palette there. Crazy City Lady, I think a good hearty lot of her pictures will have yellow in them because of the bridges.
Oh yeah.
Right, and those yellow bridges in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and she really emphasizes, including sometimes doing, which I know a lot of people don't like, the color, having the yellow bridge being the only thing in color, and everything else being like gray or black and white. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but again, it's a style. Now there are some people who go for more of the vibrant colors, and some people whose photography goes for the muted colors. And that's like it says here, it's part of your style. It's, I like things that pop a little bit more most of the time. Sometimes I do want to have a mood of a muted color, though. I did a sepia tone recently of a building a couple days ago, and it kind of helped that I took the picture at 7 a.m. So it was overcast. It was 7 a.m. So there wasn't a lot of light and there wasn't a lot of bright colors. So putting in sepia kind of gave it a feel for it, that, bright colors. First of all, the scene, not only time of day, overcast, the scene didn't have a lot of bright colors around it, so I didn't really lose much in terms of a punch. But some people are just like, I want my colors to look this way, or I like this, or I like this, or I want my. So you work on adjusting that, and then or sometimes you do one or two things which is completely opposite because it kind of throws people off. But for the most part, and that's part of your editing style, because you can take a picture of an area, of a building, of a flower, a still life, whatever you want, and say, okay, this is the composition I like. Now I want to work on, and the lighting looks good, but I want to work on the color palette. I want to make it muted a little bit more than how it's shown here. So you can work on, now there's, like I said, the base editor is good. The built-in photo app editor is good. But if you want to work on individual colors, I know Lightroom Mobile, you can actually say red. I want it to have not just light or darker, but I want it more saturated, less saturated. So you can take down the saturation and make it a darker shade of red or a darker shade of blue, if you want to do that, or put an overall tint to the photo, So there's lots of ways that once you get a feel for what and this is, again, over time and experience, getting your color palette, but then knowing, okay, And something that may help with this is having presets. Once you know how to get the photo the way you want to make it, you can go, okay, this style, save that style. And it may not work. It's not going to work immediately, automatically, 100% of the time. But if you have a particular style and you make your own filter in whatever program you use, you can say, okay, that gets me 90% of the way there.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with color palette. I like a muted color palette that's a little cooler than with how the phone. And that's something else to know is, does your phone shoot warm or cool?
Yeah, yeah.
Because
I find some of the Android phones, maybe not so much now because they're really getting closer together, like between Apple and the Android phones, the camera systems. But I would say a few years ago, the Samsung phones would shoot at a cooler temperature than, well, even not, I think, you know what, even now it's still like this. But they would shoot at a little cooler temperature than the Apple phone, like the iPhone, natively, like in a regular like default mode type of thing. Unless you got in there and with a third-party app and started playing around with the white balance, but yeah, there's color tones and things like that. Mike, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I think there's two parts to this, and the one is color theory. And I had a podcast episode a little while ago. I had a guest on, Tara Leslie, and she's an artist, and in her day job, she was a colorist at a carpet manufacturing company. And so her job was to accurately photograph color. And then when she gets into her art form, she then uses color theories, contrasting, split complementary, all this sort of thing. I mean, we had this it's been my most popular episode. Surprisingly, I wouldn't have picked it. But,
I listened to it. I remember that one.
It's just so much. It was just so much fun. She was saying she would walk into an artist supply shop and she would see some colors and she would feel instantly hungry. Like it would have a physiological reaction with her looking at different colors, which is really cool. I've heard people talk about certain colors do certain things, but the way she articulated it was really interesting and fun. But you touched on some great things there, that Dave, Lightroom Mobile, I didn't really myself, because I started using Snapseed when I first got into mobile photography, and it's fantastic. But when you get into the curves and you start playing around with the colors, channels inside curves, things get wacky really quickly. And it's not the place to go and learn color. The place to learn color is Lightroom Mobile. And just put my photography educator hat on for a moment. The reason why it's so cool is that you can go into there's two options there. You've got color grading, which is really good to go in and change the color tint for the shadows, the highlights, midtones, or global. You can change it to everything. You can turn it into a monochromatic using that. But it's just really cool to have a play around with, and even have a photo there of the matrix. When they're up in the matrix, have a look at, like, a screen capture or just Google search when they're up in the matrix, and then have a look at a photo when they're down and they're in the ship, and you can see when they're on the ship, the shadows are severely blue, and like the color contrast is, the color grading is quite dramatic. And so you can go and replicate that in Lightroom Mobile using the color grading. But I love it, and you touched on it, Dave, is the presets. You can go into presets, and if you're subscribed, like it costs like $7-8 a month for the mobile plan, you can have a photo there, and you can go into presets, and it will analyze your photo, and it will look at your photo, and then it'll come up with some recommended presets, and then you can go along and go, oh, that looks really cool, and then I'm not so sure, and then it's got a little button there, similar presets or similar to this, and you can tap on that, and then you're fine tuning it, and it gets closer and closer to what you like. And then when you find one there, tap on it, and then you can go into the color panel, and you go into the individual colors, and you can see, this is what I love about Lightroom presets as opposed to Instagram or Snapseed. Oh, not so much Snapseed, but some of these others, Visco, it does these edits, and it's like putting colorful, beautiful color cling wrap over the photo. It's like, oh, that looks really amazing. I didn't learn anything. I don't know what they've done. Whereas with Lightroom Mobile, with the presets, you can go into the colors panel, go into the color channel and you can see exactly what the adjustments were done. So it's a great way to learn color, how to manipulate color. And you'll see there where some certain colors, they'll actually change the hue. So they'll change the colors within that photo and go, you know what, the green, we're going to make the green a little bit more yellow, or the other way around. And then it changes luminosity, saturation of the colors. There's so much you could do in colors inside Lightroom Mobile. Presets is the way to get in there and learn it, or just slide around and see what you're doing. But presets, what I like about it is that somebody has made those adjustments with an intention with that photo. Like they've looked at that photo and go, this photo is going to look a lot better, and it's subjective, but this photo is going to look better if you do this with the colors. So then instead of just experimenting, sliding things around by yourself, you've got some direction there. You go, okay, I see what they've done here. I see why they've done that. The shadows, now they've added a bit of a blue tint to it, and then they've changed these colors. And you can actually slide around and change it yourself inside the filter. Once it's done, you can go in there and change these adjustments and just further emphasize it to create your own kind of take on it. You go, you know what? I like what you did, but hey, I like green. I don't want my greens to turn to yellow. So you just slide that hue back a little bit so you can tweak it to your own taste. And that's a great way to find your own style. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Just a final word on the color palette is a lot of people use a lack of color. Some people are just straight black and white, and that is definitely a style in and of itself. So, like the outline says, muted colors and desaturated tones. Well, you can actually take the color right out of the equation, and then you end up with highlights and shadows only, and that there is, like I say, it's a style of its own. So
one thing I like to do is an app called, we're iPhone specific here, so I can mention this app. Normally I have to be careful not to say iPhone apps because half my audience go, oh, iPhone user again.
Yeah.
But this is great. There's an app out there, Superimpose X. I love it. It's my favorite for compositing and blending photos together. And what I'd like to do is have the photo, create a black and white inside Lightroom Mobile, or Snapseed has some fantastic filters for black and white. Load up the original photo inside Superimpose X, and then you add a layer of the black and white. And then inside there, it has different blend modes. So you can go in there and you can select, color burn. You can select overlay. It's like all these terms that you're familiar with Photoshop. You can go in there and then you can mask in, and you can actually change the opacity, the strength of how much of that black and white in certain parts of the photo actually go over top of that original. So even though it's not strictly a black and white, you're blending the two, and it's just a lot of fun. This is why I'm passionate about editing, because that's the experimenting side of it. That's the fun side of it. If you just take the photo and go, you know what, I like the way the colors represent on a Samsung better than iPhone, and then you take the photo and you go, hashtag no edits. It's like, you were missing out on so much.
Well, speaking of edits, the next section is edit with intention. The editing process is an opportunity to put your artistic vision into practice, just like you've been talking about here. Experiment with editing tools, filters, and presets to create a consistent look and feel across your photos. Develop a personal editing style that complements your subject and enhances the mood you want to convey. I mean, we've kind of been talking about this all night, really. When you think about it, with all the different sections that we've hit on this, editing seems to have come into just about every one of them, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's one part that's missing in that little synopsis there is visual flow. Editing, I think editing is really powerful to change the visual hierarchy of elements. And in the book, I talk all about, you've got your, I think it was Rick Salmon. It was on one of your podcasts, Rick Salmon. He said, the way to find the visual anchor, then the part of the photo that grabs your attention is to look away, close your. I'm moving away from the microphone. Look away, close your eyes, and then turn around and open your eyes again, and then that will help you go, that's the visual anchor. That's the bit that I can see first. And it's similar to we have all experienced this. You walk into a room and you have a blank, you go, what did I walk in here for? And you turn around, you walk out. As soon as you step out, you go, oh, that's what it was. So, the way of
happens to me a lot. I mean, I've looked for my keys and they've been in my hand.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And that's the thing with editing, is that with editing you can go in there and you touched on it, Dave, with the muted colors. You can have areas that are muted so your eye doesn't go there. Then you go to other areas where the colors pop, or you've got more contrast, or you've got a darker area, bright area, whatever it is that manipulates. And I know that sounds negative, but that's what our job is artistically representing something. And we want the viewer to look at the photo. We want them to have, instead of just looking at something static, two-dimensional, we want them to experience depth. We want them to experience that visual journey and looking around the photo. And this is why angles like diagonals work so much better than just verticals and horizontal lines. Although they give you stability and strength, having diagonals encourages you to move around the frame, move around, look around, explore, engage with the photo. And editing does that, especially when you get into, we've talked about some global adjustments like whole of image adjustments with color grading, that sort of thing. But when you get into the area specific, that's really powerful when you can change the visual hierarchy and you can control and come back to that visual intention. You got your main visual anchor, and then you've got your contextual anchors or contextual elements that are there to tell a story, or they are there to help you guide the viewer around the frame. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I could talk about this.
I knew this one would get you bouncing off the walls.
and the reason is because this is something that I struggled with when I came from my technical background in photography and then got into photography and was enjoying photography. I would look at other photos on Instagram and go, wow, that's an amazing photo. I can't, like, how? I've got all the technical experience. I'm using all these manual control apps. I'm using Reflex, slow shutter cam at the time. I'm doing technical stuff that's blowing people away with what you can do with a phone, especially when I'm out there running workshops saying, hey, look how much control you can have out of the iPhone. But my photos were flat, boring. They weren't doing anything for me. And so then when I got into composition and editing, it's like, wow, now I get it. Now I need to get out there and tell people.
Yeah. Dave, you do a lot of editing.
Yeah.
And what I've really enjoyed from you lately is sometimes you put the same image up with 2 or 3 different edits. But sometimes you'll put the original up to show the difference between the before and after. And I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, and that's one thing I do a lot in the group, because I want people to see what came out of the camera. Because I know, like when Mike said about, a lot of people, you see these finished images and your mind's blown. But you don't see, oh, that's not the image I took. I took image A, and then it took me blah, 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 blah to get to the image you're seeing. And I like to say, okay, here's what I started with. And I normally, when I post something, I'll hashtag the apps I used, partially because I want to support the people making the apps, and partially so people who look at my photo can say, oh, he used this, and this. Like lots of, I've gotten on a kick in the last month or so where I'll take a photo, do a little work in in Lightroom Mobile, throw it into Visionist, maybe throw it into ArtCard, throw a little bit in Snapseed, throw it back into Lightroom Mobile and for the edited one, and do maybe a final cleanup in the Photos app. And it comes out with a certain way. And sometimes if you, like I did a photo recently and I threw it into Photoshop, I remember that was it. Yeah, I think it was it. Photoshop camera, because it has the lenses and the presets, and it gave me something that I didn't expect. And I was like, you know what? I like it. It kind of fits with the overall feel for the photo. So I'll go with that, and I'll do some other stuff, and I'll adjust some other things and see how it turns out. But
so would you say your intent is to just find what you get, Like, you know,
it depends on the photo. It depends on the photo and what I'm trying to get out of it. There are certain photos that, like, I took one recently that was some flowers in front of the Highmark building downtown. And my edit there was just more because it was an overcast gray day that it was like drizzle. I wanted to give a little bit more punch to it, especially the sky, which was kind of the photo turned out just kind of gray, flat gray. And I know looking up at the sky, you can see there's a little bit more texture in it. So I wanted to pop it up a little bit and deal with the colors and that. So I did, that was more of a little tweak edit. But like I said, the one I did, and I actually did a couple more edits on the one that was the Soldiers and Sailors Hall from Sunday. I threw that in a couple different programs, and there's one filter that's in Photoshop camera, PS camera, which kind of gives it like a white torn border. Kind of like if you took a photo that got torn and you put it on white matting. And kind of gave it a kind of a bluish hue to it, hue that way. And I threw it in some other programs to give it a little color, a little punch, and a little thing like that. But that was just getting the feel and the mood for it. Was I wanted a little bit more abstract and some colors that didn't exactly match at that time. So a lot of times I'll look at a photo I took and I'll go and I'll be like, well, this photo, I just want it to be a little tweaked, a little punch, maybe a little bit more clarity, a little sharper, and I'll work and I'll think about my editing that way. And there's other ones where it's like, okay, that really won't work there. I'm going to try a few other programs and get a feel for it. And sometimes it doesn't work. A week ago, another race. It's fall, so it's race season. It was out at the Pittsburgh airport, and there was one time where it was the beginning of the race, and you saw the line of people who were racing kind of in front of me and making a turn off to the left. And I just grabbed the camera, took a quick photo of it, and put it back in my pocket. But I couldn't get the photo to work out through editing the way I saw it in my eyes. And part of it is just a matter of these are, even though they're amazing, they're still small lenses. And there's only so much you can do. And it's kind of it was a challenging shot. Literally it was a thin line of people that went out, made a left turn, and it was around a half mile worth of people kind of in a line. And it was just kind of disappearing. And I kind of like the look of the line of people turning off and vanishing away, but it just didn't pick it up. So, sometimes you have a feel for what you want to do and you try to edit and it doesn't work out sometimes. But that's fine because you learn from not working out. I don't want to say failure. It wasn't a failure, just didn't work out.
Yeah, just didn't work, fit your vision, I guess you could say.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to rush through these last 2 points here because we're going a little long here. How much time do you have, Mike?
As long as you want.
Okay. Well, we won't go on too much longer, but just a couple of quick points about these ones. Next is shoot regularly and push boundaries. Consistency and practice are key to developing your style. Challenge yourself to shoot regularly, even in familiar environments. Push your creative boundaries, try new techniques, and venture outside your comfort zone. Embrace failures. There you go, Dave. Not that it wasn't a failure, but embrace it.
Right.
And learn from them as they are stepping stones to growth. Just like what you said. So shoot regularly. One of the number one points of advice or whatever is to people who ask about how they can improve their work is, I find so many people telling people to go and shoot a lot, shoot often, go out and shoot, because it's digital stuff, right? If you could throw away what you don't want to use or whatever. 30 years ago when everybody was shooting film, that's the last thing you'd say. But think outside the box. I think you could find ways of doing that by going back to number one, studying and drawing inspiration. You can find people's work that would be something that you wouldn't even dream of doing. Like especially when it comes to something like, say, street photography or macro work, even some people might not think of doing that, but if you think outside the box and push those boundaries and do try some of that stuff, you could be surprised and who knows what you find.
Yeah, I think setting yourself some projects as well. Like it's really hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes we all experience it. You go through a bit of a creative rut, a lull, and you're like, oh, I just don't know what. I'm out in my backyard again. I don't know what to capture. Try something different, like and just chat GPT. Use that. Give me some photographic projects to go and practice. And it could be something as obscure as going out and capture a black and white, a black and white intimate macro landscape. So you go out, you get on your hands and knees in the backyard, get in amongst the dirt, look for, turn your iPhone into mono mode and activate the, macro, or use a macro lens attachment, bring in some portable lights, different colored lights, like just experiment and come up with something totally different. And I think that's a way that you can just continually find your creativity. Yeah, just focus on one thing. One of the things I did that I go back to this all the time is just turn into mono mode and go out, and I do this when I'm in Melbourne in the city with streetscapes. Just shoot. Look, it's one thing to go and edit a photo in black and white, but it's another thing to actually go out and look into your viewfinder in black and white, because that helps you remove the color and you're just looking at the light, shapes, lines, textures, and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's a really good way to get out there and stay consistent and be regular taking your photos. You set yourself new projects and something else to go out and practice, because I struggle myself, because nowadays when I'm out there taking photos, it's like, okay, how can I use this for content?
Yeah.
How can I tie this into a course? Like, what can this complement? And so it's a little different nowadays. But that's why me personally, I connect with that idea of having a project, because then it's a personal project. I'm not doing it to, hey, I'm going to go and put together a blog on black and white intimate landscapes in my backyard. No one's going to look that up.
Well, I think the best way to indulge in shooting regularly and pushing boundaries is to get yourself into a 365 project where you shoot a photo, at least one photo a day, and then post it on, say, Instagram or whatever, and do that for a year. I've done it twice, and I don't think I'll ever do it again. The first time I did it, this friend of mine, she said, let's do the 365 starting January 1st. Okay. Stupid me forgot to realize it was a leap year. So it ended up being a 366. But you know what? Bro. Yeah. But you know what? And I have a plaque mounted image of it on the wall where I've got 366 1-inch thumbnails of each image from Instagram going top to bottom. And I'm so glad I did it, because now I could say I've done it for one. But it pushed the boundaries of, like, I had to literally make myself look for something. And what I did was I shot, edited, and posted it on the day, every day, never missed a day. And it really made me get a little creative sometimes. I could be at work on a night shift. And so I work from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. or 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., whatever day or nights. And I found myself at 11:30 at night thinking, oh my gosh, I forgot to take a picture. I will walk around and find something and edit it and post it before midnight on that day. I think there might have been a couple of times I went past midnight, but I got them in there anyway. And so it would really push my boundaries of creativity and everything else, because I had to find stuff to take pictures of. And even on my days off, when I was sitting at home or whatever, I would think, okay, what can I take a picture of? And quite often it was when I was out around town or whatever. But it was really a great exercise. I recommend everybody do it at least once. The second time I did it was a monochrome year, black and white. Another friend of mine said, "Hey, let's do the 365, but let's do it black and white." Okay, well, all right. So we did it, and but you know what? It was just as fun, and shooting in black and white every day. Well, not necessarily shooting in black and white, but sometimes I did. I would use the black and white filter, or sometimes I would just edit in black and white. But it really gave me a fondness for black and white photography. So, and that could very easily help somebody develop their style. Like maybe they could develop a style of black and white. But it was fun. That's a great way to get out there and shoot regularly and push those boundaries. So the last one here is trust your intuition. While it's important to learn from others and seek inspiration, remember to trust your instincts and follow your own vision. Let your unique perspective and experiences shape your photography. Authenticity and genuine expression are foundations of developing a distinct style. I think that's pretty true. And Dave, you've kind of been following your vision with your editing that you've been doing, with Art Card and Visionist and things like that. I would say.
Yeah. And like I said, it's important to learn from others, but like we talked about, everyone has their own particular style, and your style may not be everyone's. It won't be everyone's cup of tea, just because that's how people's likes and dislikes works.
There's a subjectivity, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But if you get joy out of it and you get to the point where you're like, I like the way this turned out, and go for that, because there's enough people out there where you won't be the only one. How many artists do we celebrate that do something that's completely different, break all the rules? Or at first we're told, oh, don't do it that way. That's not the way to do, singing, painting, photography, whatever. That's not the quote unquote proper way to do it. That's not the way. Well, if it's a style that you like and that you're comfortable doing, go for it. That's the biggest thing. Again, there's nothing wrong with saying to someone, okay, I'm stuck between these two. Which one do you like better? Now, if you disagree vehemently with the person says, no, that's that person's style is completely different from yours. And you're like, okay, well, I appreciate your feedback, but I'm going to go in a different direction. Trust your own intuition. Trust what you like. You're the photographer. You're the artist. Trust what you're doing.
Yeah, that's right. Any thoughts, Mike?
No, I don't really have anything else to add to that other than just clarifying that last point there about authenticity is the foundation of style. I think that comes back to finding what you consistently do, what you consistently like to capture. Like, you can't go out there and say, okay, I'm going to go out there and my style is going to be bridges from this particular perspective. You can't keep that up. You can't shoot that consistently. So if you find something, a subject or a shooting technique or an editing technique that you consistently do and you enjoy that, regardless of what other people think, if you enjoy that, that becomes your style. But I think one of the things we mentioned very, very start of this is that it's continually evolving. I know so many people that find a style and then that becomes their brand. That becomes what they're known for, and that can become a bit of a trap. And so, yeah, you can actually. The way I view it is that I have a different style for the different subject matter, different genre. So I'll have a certain style for landscapes. I'll have a certain style for black and white. So it should always be constantly evolving as you're learning new skills, as you're being influenced by different photographers, different photography groups, clubs, that sort of thing. Don't. It's not a destination. That old saying, it's not a destination, it's a journey.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's true. it's constantly evolving. It should be constantly evolving. You should always be challenging yourself to, okay. And that's why we get into those creative ruts, is because, you're not feeling challenged again. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think we've had a heck of a conversation on this tonight. So to summary, our outline says, remember that developing a style is, like you said, a journey that evolves over time. It's okay to experiment, refine, and adapt along the way. Enjoy the process, be patient, and embrace your individuality as you explore the world of iPhone photography. I think that sums it up really, really well. We probably could have made a 3-hour, 4-hour episode on all this stuff. And, but you know what? When I saw this outline, I thought there's only one guy I want to have on here to talk about this stuff. And that's you, Mike, because I think your experience with, instructing people and things like that. And your, I call it, a systematic approach and thinking and all that stuff really adds to the discussion when it comes to developing a unique style. And man, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come out and play with us today and talk about this stuff.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And that really means a lot, because I know myself, coming from a technical background in photography and not feeling creative enough, and feel, because my dad and my sister both are amazing guitarists, and I felt like I skipped that gene. I didn't get it.
Yeah.
But then when I realized that you can learn principles and guidelines in art or photography, and that helps you to get out there and try different things and be creative. That's the process. And no, that's really cool. It was a great conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah. Dave, do you think you have anything to take away from this?
Well, I would say there's a good amount, but I'm going to cop out here and say, because it's 10:45 at night.
Yeah.
Any deep introspection, I'm going to wait till later.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah.
No, like I said, it was a great conversation.
Yeah,
it's always, like you said about in past episodes, the main reason I think we do the podcast is we enjoy talking about photography.
Yeah, and you know what? We are always learning ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
We learn from each other. We learn from things that we see online and all that stuff. There's always room to learn. And I've always said, teach what you know and learn what you don't. And I think it comes around full circle sometimes. So before we tie it off here, I've been saying that I'm not going to upgrade to the 15 this year, but I have made an executive decision to do just that. I wasn't going to, even after seeing, the keynote and all that stuff. But I thought, I'm going to retire one day, hopefully sooner than later, and I'm not going to be able to just go out and buy one every year. So my plan is to hopefully upgrade this year, upgrade next year, and then that's kind of my retirement goal, is to probably be the end of next year. And who knows? It may happen, it may not. I don't know. It just depends on whether my situation will allow me to do that. I'm hoping it will. But in any case, I'm hopefully going to, I'm definitely going to upgrade this year. So I've got it ordered, and it doesn't get here until at least October 15th, because I didn't jump on the pre-order right away. So I'm getting the Pro Max in the titanium blue, and I've got the fine woven case already. How much time it's going to spend on my phone, I don't know, because I've been hearing a lot of things about them. I wish they would still make the leather ones, but I'm probably going to come up with a substitute at some point that's going to be a little more durable. But anyway, so that's the dope on that. So I will be able to share some firsthand experiences. And Dave, if the track record shows, you'll probably get a new one next year, maybe.
I'm thinking next year,
so we'll both be able to share experiences.
Both me and Ruth have 13 months left to pay on the phone.
Yeah.
And right now to put out, especially since both, there's nothing wrong with the phone with our 13s. They're
right.
it's like, oh, would I love to have the 5X and the extra dark, and the fact that it doesn't go to night mode until much darker than my phone would. Yeah, I like that. Is it worth paying the extra $500 to pay off my contract right now so I can trade in the phone? And no, I'll wait a year. I'll pay it off a month or two early and go from there then.
Yeah. What about you, Mike? Are you jumping on the 15 or?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
And I think it's partly because, as you alluded to, my focus is more on photographic intention, composition, editing.
Yeah.
Not so much the technical stuff anymore. I think the technical stuff for me was in the fascination with technical and wanting to squeeze as much as I could out of the phone. I think that held me back quite a lot with photography. So now I kind of focus more on skills enhancement and learning. I've spent the money.
That's perfectly fair. I mean, do I really need to? No. But it's just something that I thought, while I have the opportunity, while I have the chance to do it, I thought, I could do it. And another excuse is because I do this podcast, I kind of like to have the latest and greatest when I can, so that I can talk about it firsthand. And I mean, I'm not like, some of these YouTubers and that who get one sent to them who can do a quick review of it. I won't be able to do that. A buddy of mine in town has one, but I'm not going to ask him if I could borrow it for a week. I don't think he'd let me.
No, not for a week. An afternoon, maybe. An afternoon, early evening.
Well, I think there's going to be a time when him and I can go and shoot it, and he can say, "Here, you want to try it?" Okay, okay, that's enough.
However, being the spiritual successor of the longest-running iPhone photography podcast, and I think we are right now the longest-running iPhone photography podcast.
If you include Tiny Shutter, you mean?
Well, even if you don't, I think for that focuses only on iPhone photography.
Oh, currently, yeah.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. Yes. Being the longest running iPhone photography podcast. If anyone at Apple happens to hear this, we're open. We're open for review units. We're not shunning you guys.
Oh, heck no.
We would never do that. No, if this ever gets up to Tim Apple's ear, we would have no problem.
I might have shut on that opportunity. Can I take back what I said?
Oh, I shouldn't be laughing because I start coughing. Anyway, okay. So, Dave, let's tell everybody where they can find you real quick.
Sure. You can find me pretty much everywhere on social media as ProfPod, except for TikTok, where I'm ProfPodPGH. And on Facebook is Dave Podner Jr.
Alrighty. Mike, how about you?
2 locations. Smartphonephotography.club is where you can learn about the club with all the courses and forum, the live Zoom calls, that sort of thing. And then for general tutorials, smartphonephotographytraining.com.
Alrighty. And the links to the club, it's always been in the show notes. And I think the other one's in there too. I'm not sure. If it's not, I'll put it in there. And you can find me at, I always say the best place is about.me/McMillan. And that's got all my links and whatnot to the socials and wherever I am, my website and whatnot. So you can find me there. Well, thanks, guys. It's been a great conversation. Folks, if you stuck around this long, good on you. And we really do appreciate it. And I guess we will see everybody on the next one.
Have a great one, everyone.